phone interview or I go out to a scattered event, but I did a bit of legislation, a little bit of fun events, and like a good memory. But I was also involved in, I know the people in different kinds of organizations.
Have some Rocky Road cookies, some snow.
Where you're training.
Change. You can just keep moving up on the ships. I mean, you can go to Stewart, you can go.
About the program, what points would you really drive home?
He's your potential, and he's not afraid to show it. So it's very empowering, very motivating too.
Well, thank you very much for your time and for the delicious goods. And that's back to you, Allan.
So we spend like a certain amount of time in the classroom every morning, and every day we're in the shop for at least 3 hours. So doing practical projects, different type of welding to mimic what we would do in industry. Could be anything from working in the oil and gas industry, in a welding fabrication shop, work in a shipyard, working on pipelines, all that.
I've been a welder since I was probably 5 years old. So,
is it a family thing?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Building, we have the welder, we have auto body service technician, auto service technician, and we also have commercial cooking, and we also have marine cooking.
Okay, and we'll see a little bit. We just heard from the marine cooks that are down on the floor, and we'll see a little bit more of their work later. But what sort of experiences does the college offer for the industrial trades like the auto technician and the welding?
Well, the trades programs is a typical. You come in September and you finish up in June. A typical day is probably 3 hours in the classroom of theory training, and then in the shop you have another 3 hours of practical, which simulates pretty well everything that you will do out in industry.
And so, what sort of students tend to get into trades programs?
Students who are kind of hands-on. They're not the academic, or they don't think they're the academic type. They're probably, some of them are already used to doing a lot of hands-on stuff at home with their fathers, their uncles, and this type of thing. They've had some mechanical experience and a knowledge, and they want to work with their hands.
Do you have any sort of interesting stories maybe that might have come out of the program that of alumni that have gone on to achieve a lot or experience a lot of success?
Nothing that really sticks out, but where we offer the advanced block training as well, we do get to see most of our entry-level students, our first-year students. Because we offer the different levels of advanced training, we get to see them pretty well from day one when they start until they actually receive their Red Seal certification.
So it must be really sort of gratifying to see a student start from the very beginning not knowing quite as much and then come right to the end where they're passing a Red Seal exam.
Yes, when they come back for their advanced training, and they always have their stories, and they always kind of share what was really helpful to them in their training. And our students are basically all over the world, and the work is all over the world.
What sort of careers do people get into or what industries do people get into with these different trades?
Well, for welder, any of the welding shops, fabrication, that type of thing. Obviously, the auto service technicians are in the mechanical shops out repairing cars. Auto body are in the collision body shops. Cooking, again, is your restaurants, or commercial cooking is your restaurants and hotels, and I'll call it land-based. And your marine cooking students are all over the world on the sailing ships.
Thank you so much, Sterling. It's great to hear from you. And next, we're going to go back to Ken Meeker on the floor.
Yeah, Allan, we're down here on the gym floor with the business management program. So just to get started, tell me your name and a little bit about the program.
So my name is Michael Rose, and I'm an instructor in business management on the accounting side. In terms of our program, business management can be basically have two elements to it. We have office administration, and we also have business management. So our office administration over here, that's our more technical side, where we're dealing with things like typing and each of students. So we track those, of course, recently out of school. We track those who spend some time working and want to come back and have a different career. We're also attracting a fair number of international students in those schools. But in terms of the actual students, pretty much anyone in this case loves computers, loves generating information, loves organizing information. In this case, anyone who likes interpreting business information, business trends, and want to use that information to help organizations achieve goals. Pretty much any person who's got those goals rapidly.
And what's been your proudest moment as an instructor teaching this program?
My proudest moment as an instructor is when you see those aha moments. When you're talking about some topic or some issue or some notion, and the student says, aha, I remember seeing something like that, or I remember something like that happening. I didn't know it, or I didn't understand it, or I didn't know it, and now I do. And those are my proudest moments, to see those kind of lights go on.
And what can this program offer to students?
This program can offer so many things. This program can offer. So it can offer students an opportunity to come to a school that's world class and to learn skills that are contemporary working skills. These programs do very well in the workplace, so our students can do jobs quite often. But the skills themselves are transferable. So a lot of students like to volunteer. These are transferable skills in their volunteer role. So these are general skills that you can use in a number of different ways. At work, volunteering, at home, whichever.
So it's quite the varied program, but is there anything else you'd like to say or add regarding the program?
Not really. It's the only thing I suppose is our program. It's got different elements to it. So there's 3 or 4 different specialties. There's 3 or 4 different specialties here, and the specialties attracts a different type of person. So, for instance, over in business management, accounting tends to be numbers focused. So people like numbers. Human resource management, dealing with human resource issues, hiring, firing, and managing human resources. Marketing tends to be presenting us on topics. I think the biggest thing, when we seem to here over, we have different types of people. I think the biggest thing I'd say to anyone who's considering one of the programs is to think about what you like. Think about who you are, what you like, the things that you like to do. Chances are one of them will fit you, and just kind of find out.
Well, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And back to you on the balcony, Allan.
This phone is
That light is pretty.
Oh, sorry.
Next, I did pay a visit to the Marine Cooking Kitchen just the other day, and they were cooking up some amazing-looking food down there. So we're gonna have a look at that video right now. So what are sort of some things that people could expect if they're coming into the Marine Cooking Program?
The first things that they need to be able to expect are to do marine emergency within the first month of being here. One covers marine emergency duties. That's a 1 to 2 week course, depending on if they do their firefighting, which these students have done. They also have to get their marine medical, so that means they have to be fit and healthy. They also do Marine Advanced First Aid, which is a week course. Then they come into the kitchen and we start them off with their basic cuts before we start moving on to any products that they're going to be making. They need to be here 90% of the time. Transport Canada has a 90% attendance rate requirement. If the students don't meet that, then they won't be able to pass the course. They also have related courses that we don't teach, but I believe they have a math course, they have a computer course, and I think that they have English as well. Highly ambitious, well-driven students come to this program because they know that it's going to be hard. Just doing all the requirements that they need to do just to get to sea, on top of all the cooking projects and being here every day. Some people drive an hour out of town, back and forth every day in all kinds of conditions, and they make it here because they are driven and they are ambitious.
Great thing about it is that if you don't have something come out right, you can always make it again. It's just a learning experience, so it's a wonderful atmosphere to be in. Some of the training was actually quite, I think it was a bit of a surprise for some of us. We've done a lot of training in regards to MEDs, so we actually got to jump off 14 feet into the pool out in Foxtrap, and a lot of life survival, firefighting, because we need to know basic duties, and also to security duties for piracy if you go to Africa and the Middle East and such.
And that was my video piece from the Marine Cooking Program. Who knew that you would have to learn how to bake biscuits and fight off pirates? All semester in our video class, we've been working on building our video skills, and we've put together a program about climate change here in Newfoundland. So right now, we're going to show you that program. It's got a piece from everybody in our second year journalism class. So here we go. We've got that for you right now.
Experts agree that climate change can no longer be ignored. People have been trying to get the attentions of others on this important matter since the 70s. Environmental concerns are very close to the top of the list when it comes to political and global concerns. Kicker News reporters looked into the effects climate change has had here in our province. First, sea level rising is actually something we should be concerned about. Then, Kicker's Jasmine Burt finds out how to go zero waste. By the year 2100, sea levels are set to rise between 1 and 4 feet. With so many people living near the coast, this could have untold effects on the world as we know it. Kicker's Nick Travis explores the problems of a rising tides.
Imagine for a second Water Street actually being covered in water. Problems like this might be avoidable for us here in Canada, but what about poorer countries where a large amount of the population lives near the sea?
The biggest concern for me is not local or regional, it's going to be the global. We've got parts of Southeast Asia, for instance. Let's just take one country, Bangladesh. Right now, about 170 million people. A third of the country is within a meter of sea level. So within projected uncertainties, depending on the largest uncertainties are what society is going to end up doing in terms of moving to a non-carbon economy or not. But we could easily hit 1 meter sea level rise on average globally. So Bangladesh, 170 million people, losing a third of its land area. It's a poor country, not resource rich, and it's in an area where there's no social capacity among its neighbors, no social economic capacity to deal with that kind of loss of land and resulting migration.
Sea level rise seems to be inevitable, but there are very different projections on how bad it'll get regarding whether we as a planet act now or later. Two main projections, as seen here, known as RCP 8.5 and RCP 2.6, show us possible futures for our planet. RCP 8.5 is business as usual, while RCP 2...
A place that's inundated with ocean water because of a storm, for example. A 100-year extreme sea level event might actually become more frequent, a decadal event or a yearly event. And so this puts a massive strain on those communities and on those states and also on the global community on spending a lot of resources to manage this, to the point that some of these communities might have to be relocated or essentially propped up and supported with very significant mega-scale infrastructure projects.
I don't know, in terms of international law or just solving problems, we're going to have to figure out how to do that, because if we don't, I think phenomena like ISIS and what we've been seeing in the last 10 years are going to be peanuts. There'll be a lot of people who've lost their homes, frustrated, blame it on the West, and if they don't see the West taking responsibility, there's going to be a lot of lashing out, I would think.
According to experts, whether or not we stop the rising tide is up to our actions today. Regardless of whether we solve the problem or not, the ball is in our court as far as what to do with this impending crisis. For Kicker, I'm Nick Travis.
Rising sea levels isn't the only thing we should be concerned about. Our lives revolve around plastic, and we very well may soon be drowning in it. At current levels, the plastic life cycle threatens the ability of 3 local women who are bent on removing plastics from their lives.
Plastic bottles, coffee cups, and more garbage.
Grew up there and we always compost. So when I moved here, I was shocked that there was no composting, there wasn't even curbside recycling when I first moved here, and just everything went in the garbage, and I was like shocked.
Mother-daughter duo, Jennifer.
Put it at the top.
So why not cut plastics? Like these ladies already know, it will take some lifestyle changes to reach zero waste, or even low waste. Washing your dishes low waste would look a little different. And brushing your teeth with bamboo can be cool. No twigs attached.
Yeah, it's not easy. I feel like people are always throwing garbage at you. Love seeing like little changes from people, and just trying. And if everyone did a little bit, I think it would make a huge difference.
Jasmine Burt, Fort River News.
Climate change is one of the most debated topics for many people. The potential effects it has on our planet has been widely discussed. For one geographer, the rise of sea levels and how it may affect sea life is one of his areas of study. Norm Cato, head of the geography department at Memorial University of Newfoundland, talks about the rising sea levels across the province.
It's currently increasing at the rate of about 3 millimeters per year here in St. John's, different in different parts of the province, less so in the northern peninsula, and actually dropping a little bit in Lake Melville. So it's not something then that you would notice as a person just walking along the beach, because 3 millimeters in 20 years, only 60 millimeters or 6 centimeters. And we of course would get waves that would be much greater than that.
Sea levels aren't the only issue that the oceans are facing. Water temperatures is another big issue according to Cato.
Our biggest problems with climate change in the marine life are changing water temperatures. And that's the sort of thing then that does cause die-offs. Like we just saw this with the major salmon die-off on the south coast with the aquaculture. So it's that type of thing then that we're concerned about in terms of climate change in marine environments.
Cato further went on to talk about temperature changes that affect different species.
Any rapid change in water temperature, either up or down, is going to affect a lot of fish species. So we've had, for example, conditions. We're going to have wave action then that is able to impact the land. We're going to have winds working across open water so that they'll generate waves and embayments. So as a result of that, we're going to see an increase in erosion.
The potential loss of sea life is another factor that the erosion of ice can cause. He goes on to talk about the different types of fish that could be affected by this issue.
You could have erosion that then would result in an increase in siltation, more sediment entering into individual coves or things of that sort. So that could have an impact on, say, mollusk species, mussels, or things like that. Again, it's likely only to be a local factor, so we're not looking at something where the entire coastline starts eroding, and we're not like PEI where we have huge areas that could be subject to erosion.
Climate change will always be a widely talked about subject. Whether it affects sea levels or sea life itself, there needs to be more people taking action against it. For Kicker, this is Steve Tapper.
There are many solutions to bring down gas emissions in Canada, and Newfoundland and Labrador's best solution just might be the electric car. Kicker's Allan Bradbury looks into why electric cars aren't being adopted in our province and some of the benefits that we might be missing out on.
In the late 1800s, a revolution took place in transportation, and soon automobiles were everywhere. This, however, is causing a problem. In 2017, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency estimated that 29% of greenhouse gas emissions were from transportation. One of the solutions to this problem is electric cars. But Newfoundland and Labrador seems to be a little slow on the uptake. John Seary is one of the founders of Drive Electric NL, a group advocating for more electric vehicles, or EVs, in Newfoundland and Labrador.
We lagged the entire country by a huge margin. We are less than 1% of the vehicles. There's probably around 100, maybe 120 fully electric cars or plug-in hybrids registered in Newfoundland, compared to the rest of the country, which is gradually seeing an uptake in electric vehicles.
Seary and his family have been driving all electric for a while now. They have a Tesla Model X and a Nissan Leaf. According to Seary, one of the biggest things limiting the expansion of electric vehicles in Newfoundland is the lack of a charging network.
Very few places that are selling them right now, and the reason why there's very few places selling them right now is because there's very little public infrastructure. Most of your charging is done at home. You very rarely need to go and look for a gas station if you had a gas pump at home. However, for long distance travel, you do need available public chargers, of which the province has none. They have level 2 chargers, which are good if you're stopping overnight or don't mind stopping for a while, but the more convenient level 3 chargers, there's none existing in the province at this time.
Well, the initial price of switching to an EV can be high right now. Seary says they will come down, and you save by not buying gas. The other thing is the maintenance required on a lot of them is pretty limited. Under the hood is used for storage, and the only fluid you need to top up is windshield wash.
What's out there now is a whole host of different vehicles. We'll be announcing theirs on November 21st. There's other brands like Rivian and Atlas, and of course Ford is electrifying their F-150. And when you start to see things with 500 miles of range and the ability to tow 35,000 pounds on a gooseneck fifth wheel, the question isn't going to be, who wants to do electric cars? The question is going to be, how fast can I get myself one of these fantastic looking trucks with very impressive specs?
Aaron Wiseman is a relatively new EV driver. He got his Tesla Model 3 this past summer.
First, getting away from gas cars, is that going to be more cost effective? Can I afford that? Because there's a big upfront cost, right? And weighing that against, say, my own ethical convictions about wanting to be environmentally friendly. And I thought, well, if I could do both of those, and if both of those came together, then it would be a great decision. The big thing was that I didn't really want to have any gas emissions because they account for 50% of carbon emissions of vehicle CO2. So I really just wanted to produce something that was, I wanted to drive something that wasn't going to harm the environment, at least have a minimal impact. I mean, I know you still get energy from fossil fuel burning and coal burning, but ideally it's more efficient, and the electric engines, the electric motors are way more efficient in terms of energy utilization than a gas engine. So that aspect really stood out to me and really kind of entranced me towards electric vehicles. And I take great pride in driving a vehicle that doesn't produce at least as much emissions as in overall in terms as opposed to a gas vehicle.
From what fuels our vehicles to what fuels us. As a culinary staple in Newfoundland and Labrador that would render the dressing with the Christmas turkey incomplete, savory. However, the famed crop got right recently. The climate in the Mount Scio area changed and wasn't suited for savory anymore. Kicker Ken Meagers has more.
Climate change is one of, if not the biggest threat to humanity in its history. Despite the isolation of Newfoundland and Labrador, we will feel its effects. We already are. It's already threatened one of the most popular seasonings in the province, one that would make the Christmas turkey incomplete without savory. What you're looking at is where it normally would have been grown in the past. Due to a change in climate in the Mount Scio area, and to discourage the growth of disease in the crop, they had to grow the savory elsewhere. Jeremy Carter is a part owner of the Mount Scio Savory Farm. Carter handles the growing here. The land has been in Carter's family since his great-grandmother.
Because of disease in St. John's and mortality of the children that lived across the street from her on Maxey Street. So it was not for agriculture, it was to avoid childhood diseases in St. John's of, I think, the early 1900s.
He's certainly noticed a change in the climate in this area.
Since my brief career farming has changed, in that it's not as hot and dry in the summers as it was when I was a little kid. It tends to be a bit damper and a little less predictable, which is what is suggested is likely to happen with climate change. Your coastal areas getting damper, your inland areas getting a bit drier and hotter.
In response to this, Carter has varied the crops that are being grown.
Be more cautious, mostly, in terms of what I'm going to try. So the things that might need a longer season, short season artichokes, there's a northern artichoke you can grow. I tried that for that year. Sweet corn, I managed to pull it off one year. But these things are not, they're a once in 5 or 6 year thing rather than an every year thing. So it doesn't make sense to put the resources into it. So again, more cautious, more conservative with what I'm going to try because of so much variability.
Due to the changing microclimate, they outsourced their savory growing to another unique microclimate, Conception Bay South. Jonas Roberts is the lead on the Med Oceans team with Wood, formerly AMEC. He wasn't surprised to learn of the microclimate change in Mount Scio.
We live in a time where anything related to the climate and weather should no longer surprise anybody, because we have all this science backing up, telling us how extreme things are going to get, and how things we're seeing now are actually moving faster than people initially expected.
Robert says that within the Northeast Avalon, there are quite a few different microclimates.
So there's a lot of microclimates that kind of exist just because of the topography and proximity to coast. Newfoundland has one place to the next is going to be very different because there's such a range of different elevations.
Robert says that other microclimates in the province could change similarly to Mount Scio.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just another, another line of evidence that the climate is changing, and if it's not one region, it's another. It could be both, and it could be more. It's indicative of the type of climate that we're living in now.
Robert says that as our climate warms, the potential is there to grow crops previously not suited to our climate. However, he cautions that this is not necessarily a good thing. We will still need to import the bulk of our food supply, which will only get harder as the climate further changes. For Kicker, this is Ken Mead.
From what we've done.
Welcome back to Kicker News. I'm Nick Travis, and I'm here with Mike Moore.
I mean, they definitely drove that nail home, and how to really put together, especially with Jonathan Crow, video pieces and radio and photography with Jeff. Definitely helped a lot of us along the way. I came in with some experience, but Jeff really helped polish that for me, and made me realize that, there's a difference between a news photo and something that's artistic, right?
And over the course of the journalism program, what are some of the favorite courses you took? What are some of your highlights of the program?
Photo for sure was a good laugh. And newsroom for sure. I mean, that's why people register for the program, right? You do all of the in-class stuff to learn about the business and learn about I'm at a loss for words. Learn about how to do the job, but then when you get into actually doing it in newsroom, chasing your own stories and shooting your own photos and doing your own video and radio pieces, that's the fun part, I find. It's the stressful part, especially if these sources and things drop out last minute and you have to meet your deadline, but that's just preps you for every day when you get a job after graduation.
And as a little send-off to this piece, what are some tips you would give current or future journalism students to get through this program, to get a career in the field, stuff like that?
They have to know that they want to do it. I know a lot of students find out really fast, especially, I can only speak for my class, but you find out quickly if you want to do it or not, especially when you get into your newsroom and you do your own stories. So you have to know that you want to do it, and you have to work, really hard. You kind of got to bust your tail to show that you want to be there and put your best work forward, because that reflects later on when you graduate. You have these stories to show, potential employers. I did this in school. I did this. Take a look and see what you like, and so everything you do here reflects afterwards for when you're definitely looking for a job.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Mike Moore. Mike Moore is a graduate of our program. Thank you very much. Next, we have Ted Power from Accessibility Services, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. Welcome, Ted. How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
How are you? Oh,
Good.
lost my questions here. Professionalism at its best. All right. So, Ted, tell me a little bit about yourself and your background.
So my name is Ted Power. I'm a guidance counselor here at the college, and I'm also a coordinator for accessibility services. So that involves a lot of different things. Counseling is one side, so talking to people about what's going on, like troubleshooting, people moving towards change, things like that, and also accessibility services, where I make sure that students have the proper accommodations in order to accommodate, because the college has an obligation to do it, and to keep in with just fairness and equity and human rights and all that fun stuff.
And what sort of services do you offer students through accessibility services?
Well, mostly it's around testing. It will be extra time for tests, quiet location, use of reading software. If somebody has, like, say, for example, somebody has dyslexia, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it does matter to me how it gets to their brain, whether they read it or they hear it. It's making sure that they have the right assistive technology, because at the end of it, we just want a student with, say, learning disability to know exactly what a student without a learning disability knows.
And, many students aren't sure of exactly what the accessibility department is. What does it offer to the school at large besides testing and stuff like that? Is there any other sort of things that you wish to highlight?
The counseling, well, my position, I'm actually the only person in the whole college who is split right down the middle, where it's counseling and the coordinating. So really, the counseling, I'm available to all students, and I work sometimes with the public, people coming in trying to figure out what they want to do, and yeah, just kind of like the big responsibility is just making sure students have the proper accommodations, because it is something in society that is needed. It's not that we make it unfair or anything, it's just you level the playing field in order to give people what they need to succeed. Yeah.
And throughout your time here, what are some of the proudest moments you've had working at Accessibility Services? Is there anything that you could highlight?
I think it's just helping people is very